Hi, folks. This week we're going to be talking about conspiracy theories. We're going to go over how they start, why they're so appealing, and how they can almost develop a cult following. Throughout this video, I have, I guess, a video within a video, so that you'll be able to hear it okay, and I don't make a mistake with the sound of it. I'm going to pause, and then I'll give you an opportunity to view the next video within it. All these videos are less or 2 minutes than less, and it just gives a little bit more of a better, more interesting example with better video graphics than I'm really capable of. So that's why I used additional videos within a video. So that I'm kind of an amateur at video graphics. So okay, so now that that's settled, let's get started.
In the summer of 2020, the Pew Research Center surveyed Americans about COVID-19 misinformation. A majority of respondents said they'd heard about a conspiracy theory that the coronavirus outbreak was intentionally planned by powerful people. And of those, more than a third said that the conspiracy theory was either definitely or probably true.
So, what do we consider a conspiracy theory? And I guess there's not so much a lot of definitions, but more examples of conspiracy theories. And really, what it boils down to is the start of a narrative of secret, spy, malevolent actors. And when they say actors, they mean people, not necessarily government officials, or just people in general, doctors, your neighbor, whoever. They can be connected to a social or political construct. And basically, there is the theory is that somehow these entities are interconnected and are generally malevolent in creating some harm to either people, society, an institution. And there's, like I said, there's tons of examples that we could go into about conspiracy theories. And often when we hear conspiracy theories, we often think of, the tinfoil hat type, someone who might be bordering on mental health issues, or just out there thinking. The fact of the matter is, conspiratorial thinking is really common. So common that one study says that 50% of Americans believe in some sort of conspiracy theory at varying levels. So, what makes conspiracy theories an interesting phenomenon? That they generate really loyal followers and are believed by really just ordinary people.
The conspiracy theory that influential people created COVID-19 is just one of many that have put the public's health and safety at risk during the pandemic. One conspiracy theory suggests that the virus was manufactured as part of a scheme to implant microchips in people during the vaccination process. The chips, activated by 5G signals, would track our movements. These beliefs are easily disproved, but people still believe them and repeat them. So what is a conspiracy theory? A conspiracy theory is an unfounded explanation of an event or situation that blames the secretive work of sinister, powerful people, such as a government, a company, or even one person. These explanations can sometimes be outrageous. They're based on faulty logic and reasoning, false evidence, or even no evidence at all. But they can be difficult to disprove to believers, even when other explanations are more likely or even proven to be true. I'm Renee DiResta, and I study how misleading information spreads online and what we can do about it. And I'm here to help you understand how conspiracy theories work and why they've become so common.
So, we're going to go over some of the characteristics of conspiracy theories and why it's so easy to fall for them. Um, a conspiracy theory usually finds a source of something unusual within a social or political event or series of events. Um, and often the cause of it is unseen, and often portrayed as intentional or malevolent. And the intention can be from other regular people, but typically it's somebody of a high status, usually in government, or you know, uh, somebody wealthy, somebody who has a lot of power, whether it's political power, capital power. Um, so that is one of the big characteristics of a conspiracy theory. Um, Another one is that they often interpret different political events as a struggle between good and evil. And the good and evil doesn't necessarily have to be almost religious in nature. It can be rich, poor, and the rich are greedy, the poor are, struggling to get by and are victims of the rich. So really, but there's definitely a two-side social construct there that and there's usually pitted against one another within that conspiracy theory, um, that one is causing the other. Usually the more powerful, wealthier, more well-known entity is labeled as the the malevolent force. And the one of the last main characteristics of a conspiracy theory is that it's suggesting that the mainstream media, and we went over what the mainstream media is earlier in the semester, but there's always a notation that the mainstream media organizations aren't telling us about this, either because they're part of the secret event or action, um, and the media is using other things, and I use things very loosely. It could be an event, it could be an accident, it could be a war, it could be really anything, and that's used to distract the public from what's actually going on. And what's actually going on is often, ties back to the first two characteristics that we discussed. So, a study at the University of Chicago said that 19% of Americans believe the 9/11 attacks were organized by the government in some way. 28% of Americans believe that the 2008 recession was caused by a cabal of Wall Street bankers, meaning that there's this secret, malevolent organization of powerful, wealthy bankers that intentionally caused economic cause and effects for the entire economy to collapse, and somehow that would benefit them. And the study also suggested that 11% believe the government mandated a switch to compact fluorescent light bulbs because they make people obedient and easier to control. And I have to admit, doing what I do and studying misinformation and disinformation, this one I had never heard of. I'm always learning something new about conspiracy theories.
According to a recent study, just over half of Americans believe in at least one conspiracy theory. People believe in conspiracy theories for a lot of reasons, and it's not necessarily because they're too trusting or uneducated. So why do people sometimes find conspiracy theories so compelling? They offer sensational and simple narratives. Conspiracy theories are often dramatic and even shocking stories that offer simplified explanations for events that we may not fully understand. And they often meet important psychological needs for the people who believe in them. They take advantage of our vulnerabilities. Sometimes people start believing a conspiracy theory because of traumatic life events. If a child gets sick shortly after being vaccinated, a parent may be vulnerable to anti-vaccine misinformation, even if there's no connection between the illness and the shot. In their fear and anxiety, a parent might grasp at anything that could explain the illness and pinpoint a cause. Conspiracy theories also provide a sense of community. People often connect with others who believe the same conspiracy theory, and they encourage one another to keep on believing. They often form closed groups on social media where they reinforce one another's false beliefs. Conspiracy theory believers often find themselves socially isolated in the real world, so it makes sense that they might seek out like-minded people for support, comfort, and reassurance. However, these communities also act as an echo chamber, where only information that supports the belief is shared or repeated, and any information that contradicts the belief is excluded.
So let's go back and talk a little bit more about why are conspiracy theories so believable? They're often sensational yet simplistic, and those two words kind of contradict one another. But here's what I mean: it takes something really sensational, meaning something that is a big event or that creates a story that's really captivating, but at the same time, it often um, offers a simple storyline on why that's the conspiracy theory storyline is believable. And a lot of times in human nature, we want to believe those really interesting. There's a reason why we find spy novels so interesting, or those crazy events of Roswell and the aliens crashing in the 50s. It's a crazy story, and we kind of want to believe that because you know wow, that answers there is life other there, if you especially if you already had that suspicion. And then the simplicity of it is the government's covering up, so um, the public doesn't panic, or they want to use alien technology that they don't want the average person to know. So a lot of times when you're talking about conspiracy theories, and this is really another characteristic indirectly, is it's a big, huge story and um, a large, grand event that happens with a simple storyline. And there's usually a simplified explanation to a complex issue or problem. So going back to aliens crash landing at Roswell in the 1950s, if that was, let's say that indeed happened, that's a pretty complex problem. First of all, there's alien life forms that are visiting us. Then there's the whole technology issue. How did they get here? We're lots of light years. I don't know exactly how many light years, but we're lots of light years away from our next nearest galaxy or potential for planets to have life on it. So that's a complex issue. So then we don't hear about it because the government just doesn't want us to panic. Well, that kind of makes sense. So a lot of people would buy it, even if a slightly more complex explanation is the aliens have crazy technology that the government doesn't want the public to know about. It's a simple answer because it's just simplifying, well, what technology? What, and then even if you can get even deeper into the theory, well, they know how to do anti-gravitational propulsion. Well, how do they do that? And so it's simple answers when, let's say that it was true, anti-gravitational propulsion, that's pretty complicated. So they're believable because they make the really impossible things. And I'm not saying aliens coming to Earth isn't, I guess, possible, but If they did, it's simplifying the enormity of a complex problem or a complex event, and why we don't know about it. I guess that would be 70 years later. And another reason why they're so believable is because they play on our fears and concerns. They answer questions that we're a little uneasy about. So, um, using the alien example, aliens crash land here, or they've been coming here for who knows how long. Well, are they hostile? Are they here to experiment on us? And that would be a concern or fear if, we knew that aliens could come here. And I'm talking extraterrestrial, outside of Earth type aliens. Um, that would be a concern and fear I'm sure everybody would have if we knew definitively that other life forms existed outside of Earth. So having those fears and concerns, the general public having them, the conspiracy theory of the government covering it up, that explains it. But does it really? When we really think about it, not really. But they're so believable because they take these large, huge problems and offer a shorter narrative that just makes sense to us. And this is one of the most important parts of why conspiracy theories are so believable, is that they provide a community, for people. So let's say I believe in the most outlandish stories about aliens coming to Earth. A lot of people would look at me like I'm crazy, or maybe not so much anymore. But if I believe that aliens have been visiting here for hundreds of years and they've been kidnapping us to experiment on us, a lot of people probably wouldn't, you know, buy into a lot of my more extreme fears about that possibility. But if I found somebody else, that's a bond we had. If we were like minded in that more extreme look at alien abduction or invasion, or however you want to describe it, when you have somebody like minded and you can share your, honestly share your concerns and fears, that's a powerful force. And it's very, and we'll go into this a little bit into the lesson, but when you have that sense of community and like mindedness, it reinforces your beliefs. So, conspiracy theories, especially in recent years, have started to cause a lot of problems within society. And not even just between um, the usual suspects of societal and social problems, even within families and within, um, you know, uh, groups of friends. And when you have that discord already, it's a conspiracy theory starts to generate the us versus them mentality. And when you have the us versus them, that starts to sow division. So, going back to my example, I believe in that aliens are kidnapping Earthlings and experimenting on them in their spaceships, and sometimes they let them come back. Let's say I find a community of people who also believe that. By having that community that reinforces that belief within each other, now we have an us. And everybody who doesn't believe us, that's them. And they just don't understand. Um, so our next video is going to go into a little bit more specific into how that becomes really critical in really sowing division between groups of people. Um, it also identifies a fault, and not necessarily someone to blame, but that there's a cause, and not necessarily a person. There's just a malevolent force of something that has caused an issue. So when there's something that has caused an issue that is what us views as detrimental to society, there's a person or institution that is at fault for this problem for occurring. Us, and I use that in air quotes, um, we also develop an awareness. The us group, we know who is who in the game, in the conspiracy theory, and who's trying to discredit us to try to stop us from telling the truth, telling the world about what's really going on. And creating that us versus them also gets can start to divide deeper and deeper and bring people further and further apart, is because the us feels like they have special knowledge, they're in the know, they understand more than another group of people. And because they don't have the information that we do, well, them, they might be part of the problem. So,
The language and structure of conspiracy theories tend to reinforce the sense of community. So how can even the most far-fetched theories seem believable? Conspiracy theories often confirm things that we already fear or believe. Conspiracy theories can connect with deep-seated fears or beliefs that are part of a person's identity. So the theory can feel right to a person even though there are no facts to back it up. Conspiracy theories offer simple answers to complex problems. These theories tend to make complex, frightening, or confusing events suddenly seem more believable than the truth. It's easier to believe that a deadly virus was created intentionally, rather than recognizing that it occurred naturally, randomly, and without warning. A man-made virus may be easier to understand than the science behind how a real virus evolves and mutates to infect and spread among people. Conspiracy theories present false evidence. Many conspiracy theories pull together a mix of unrelated facts and circumstantial connections that might seem compelling at a glance, but actually lack substance or have other explanations. To believe that coincidences are actually evidence, people often use something called motivated reasoning. This is looking only for things that confirm what you already want to believe or think is true, and ignoring or dismissing the things that conflict with the belief that you're trying to prove. And if there's no evidence for the conspiracy at all, many conspiracy theories simply turn that around and claim that the absence of evidence is actually proof of a cover-up. This thinking is common in flat Earth conspiracy theories. There is zero evidence that the world is flat, and centuries of scientific evidence that the planet is indeed round. But flat Earth believers dismiss the scientific evidence. They claim that it was manufactured to keep us all in the dark about the Earth's flatness. Conspiracy theories use pseudo-experts to back up their claims. A person who's presented as a doctor to speak authoritatively about COVID-19 might in fact be a chiropractor, or a physician with no background in infectious diseases. Or the person might have a doctorate in an unrelated field like art or philosophy, but not medicine. All of these efforts can make a conspiracy theory seem believable enough for people who want to learn more. The belief is then constantly reinforced in the echo chamber of the community. But there's one more reason why conspiracy theories can seem plausible, and it's that real criminal conspiracies have actually occurred.
so one part that can be really confusing and often cause some discord between people is that there are legitimate conspiracies that exist and have happened. And it's hard to sometimes differentiate an actual real conspiracy, normally found in you know criminal and law concepts and events, versus conspiracy theories, which are you know made up or manipulated information and whatnot. So criminal conspiracies, they are much simpler and offer much less complexity and are usually within one entity, one company, one government agency, one mass event within an institution. Conspiracy theories often have a much more complex and complicated relationship with different entities. And it's a complicated network. It's not just within one government entity and that entity. It's between banks and government and the president and educators, and it's this complicated association of relationships. So conspiracy theories are conspiracy theories are often used to describe and connect between events and institutions around the world where an actual criminal conspiracy is really just typically one entity. And when I say that, of course, in the past, there have been lots of criminal conspiracies where several government agencies colluded together, or, um, you know, a group of people conspired with maybe a government entity to, um, commit corruption. So while we're talking about government corruption, government conspiracy theories are probably some of the most common ones, and they're the most believable conspiracy theories. And that's because throughout history, not just within the United States, since probably recorded time, um, governments have been bad actors. There has been government corruption, not just within the United States, all over the world. So that past corruption leads people to believe that the government is always corrupt. Discrimination and mistreatment of communities in the past by government agencies definitely is probably one of the biggest contributors to government conspiracy theories. Because if they did that once, why wouldn't they do that again? And that definitely doesn't help public trust any. And when you have more than one happen within a relatively short amount of time, that really erodes public trust. And if there's if it's viewed that a government agency or agencies have colluded in corruption several times within a relatively short amount of time, getting that trust back is really difficult and almost impossible within it'll take often 10, 20, maybe even 30 years. When we had the COVID-19 vaccines, there was a lot of distrust within certain groups of people, and I don't blame them. The government has done some pretty terrible things, but what's important to remember is that that's not always the case, and the government does learn its lessons, and we have to take that information and think about it critically and look at lots of different pieces of the puzzle. And in this video, she's going to go a little bit more into it on, separating the fear of past government corruption and using your current, critical thinking skills and gathering evidence to come to the most logical conclusion.
So what's the difference between conspiracy theories and actual criminal conspiracies? A lot of conspiratorial beliefs are based on a combination of coincidence and motivated reasoning. A coincidence is when two or more things happen at roughly the same time, randomly or by accident, but they seem to have a connection. Superstitious beliefs can work this way. For example, if a superstitious person breaks a mirror, they might be watching out for any sign of bad luck. If, by coincidence, something bad happens, then bingo, they see further reason to believe. Then there are real criminal conspiracies, and that means a group of people working together, conspiring, to commit a crime or other wrongdoing. And in history, there have been more than a few of these. But here's how real conspiracies differ from conspiracy theories. First, conspiracy theories have plots that are often really big. They can include many people doing all kinds of different work, sometimes in multiple organizations or even different countries, and they're all working to affect people or events. Real conspiracies in history have involved smaller groups of people, usually all in one company, city, or country. Second, real conspiracies usually aren't as complicated as conspiracy theories. A lot of conspiracy theories include tales about agencies or countries secretly working together on elaborate plans, and they all supposedly keep the secret under wraps, sometimes over decades. Historically, real conspiracies mostly occurred over a shorter period of time. And because even governments and billionaires can't control all variables, things usually didn't work out as they intended. Somebody kept records, somebody talked, the facts were discovered. Let's look at some of these historical examples of real conspiracies that were uncovered.
So we're going to do a little bit of practice, a couple of scenarios that to see if we can tell the difference between a true conspiracy and a conspiracy theory. In this example, an anonymous social media post shows a complex diagram with map locations, secret codes, and grainy photos that claim hundreds of the most powerful people in the world, including billionaires, media exec, political leaders, and celebrities, are part of a secret group that has been, orchestrating tragic events to control people, primarily with fear. Based on what we learn, I'll give you a second to just think about, is this an actual conspiracy or a conspiracy theory? And it's a conspiracy theory. Um, there's no information on who's providing this information. We see the complex connections that are being made, secret codes within those connections, and lots of groups of people from completely different areas of um, private and public sector industries. In this elaborate orchestration to control people, and what they don't really say what they're controlling, just that they're controlling people, and they don't really say what for what purpose either. All right, the next example. Senior executives at a large corporation use a variety of illegal accounting maneuvers to hide billions of dollars in debt to make the company appear more profitable and keep the stock price up. Second company that provided accounting and records keeping services to this large corporation destroyed documents and other evidence in an attempt to conceal evidence from government investigations or investigators. So is this a government real conspiracy or conspiracy theory? And this would be part of a real conspiracy. We really have one entity, the large corporation, and one act, even though there's probably a lot, several maneuvers, the main goal was to hide money through accounting that one act, even though it was probably done several times. And it's making one company appear more profitable than it actually was. So that's one purpose. There's really no intricate map connecting different people, places, entities, secret codes that are being deciphered.
Historic cases of real conspiracies can make it easier for people to believe that a conspiracy theory could be true. Real corruption and secret government actions can lead people to distrust their government or big organizations, especially in communities that have been treated badly or discriminated against in the past. But while real events can fuel people's fears and their belief in conspiracy theories, it doesn't prove that those made-up conspiracies are true. Like we talked about earlier, we can see real differences between conspiracy theories and actual corruption.
So looking at these ideas on past events of government corruption leading to public distrust, and as a librarian, is probably one of the hardest parts of my job when I'm working in areas of talking about misinformation and disinformation. And honestly, I can't blame them. And even myself, I often give a side eye of I wonder if that's actually what's happening. So we'll look at a couple of different scenarios of past government corruption that has led to people buying into a conspiracy theory. And this was one company that was organized by the government to make activist organizations look bad in the 50s and 60s. In fact, the FBI, I believe it was the FBI or the CIA, kept tabs on Martin Luther King and the Black Panthers during civil rights protests and the civil rights movement. And there were attempts to make them look bad, to instigate a fight so that they could blame the groups of civil rights protesters for events that would happen that would justify a government response. This is another one you might have heard of. Tobacco companies once paid doctors to say that smoking their brand of cigarettes, I believe it was Camel, that smoking cigarettes led to a healthier life. And they faked a study to show numbers that people live longer by smoking Camel cigarettes. And then, of course, we learned to the contrary. Oil companies, I just learned about this. Oil companies knew about the significant pollution that gasoline using fossil fuels would have on the environment. As far as the 1970s, and scientists had been studying it, commissioned by Exxon to do these studies because they were looking at exploring all types of energy sources, wind, solar, even hydroelectric, using like ocean currents and whatnot. And these were there was a documentary with the scientists giving their stories about how they investigated this, and then their research got scrapped. So, this type of misleading the public, that's just one more thing that sows a deep distrust of government information when it comes to the safety of health and just the well-being of the general public.
Now, back to conspiracy theories. Let's look at some of the common COVID-19 conspiracy theories and how they've been disproven. You may have heard the claim that coronavirus was manufactured in a lab. One common claim is that the virus was intentionally created and then accidentally released by the Chinese government. Another variation that's circulated in China says that the US government created the virus and that US soldiers brought it to China. So conspiracy theories are not just initiated and perpetuated in the United States, they're a global phenomenon. A variation claims that billionaire Bill Gates funded the creation of the virus to cut the world's population in half, which was basically the plot of the last two Avengers movies. Other claims accuse pharmaceutical companies of creating the virus to make millions of dollars developing and selling vaccines. One of the most extreme and easily disproved conspiracy theories about COVID-19 is one we've already mentioned briefly, and that's the theory that the virus was created as part of a plot to implant microchips in people who will then be controlled by 5G towers. And there's even a twist on this theory that says that 5G towers are somehow giving people coronavirus, somehow sending it out to them with no microchips involved. So how do we know that these theories aren't true? Scientific research consistently suggests that the virus was not manufactured. You can actually look up research data indicating as much in the respected medical journal Nature. Scientists concluded in a report in the journal, and this is a direct quote, that the genetic data irrefutably show that SARS-CoV-2 is not derived from any previously used virus backbone. The research in the journal Nature is reviewed by other scientists to make sure the findings are accurate. This is called peer review. And further data, which the researchers share, show that the unique spike protein on the virus, which you've probably seen in news stories, is, quote, the result of natural selection. In other words, it evolved naturally in nature. Here's another piece in the growing pile of data that disproves these theories. 5G radio waves operate in a spectrum of radiation that can't penetrate human skin. And what's more, the radio waves can't carry virus molecules. So the whole idea of 5G causing people to contract COVID-19, it's simply not possible.
So as we just heard, cognitive dissonance and conspiracy theories, they kind of work hand in hand because it cements and connects in people's minds that their belief, their values can be upheld, and it makes sense to them. So it helps them keep that uncomfortable, I might be wrong feeling, or my beliefs are wrong. It allows them to be right, or they don't need to change a value or a belief. Okay, so another little quick quiz. Someone who believes that the government is always lying and manipulating people, and who therefore refuses to believe any data other than the information released by a government agency is likely exhibiting institutional cynicism.
Still, people believe these theories despite evidence against them for some of the reasons we've discussed. It can feel comforting to come up with a single explanation, however outlandish it may be, for something as complicated and scary as a pandemic. It's also easy to get drawn into a community of believers where the reinforcement of your beliefs offers comfort in uncertain times. Also, people prefer to interpret evidence in ways that confirms what they already believe. That's called confirmation bias. And as we've seen, conspiracy theories and their false evidence tend to circulate and grow online. One reason is that social media relies on algorithms that serve you up more of the same kinds of content that you click on. The internet is designed to give you more and more of what you want. So if you look at posts about conspiracy theories, or posts by people who share conspiracy theories, then TikTok, Instagram, Google, or whatever platform you're using will show you more of the same. The algorithm can crowd out credible information that disproves the conspiracy theory. So seeing a lot of posts about the same conspiracy theory ideas can make them seem more believable, and can draw you into feeling like you're part of an in-group that knows a secret. Along the way, you'll hear from people claiming to be experts, and unless you research who they are and check out their claims, you might not know whether they're legitimate experts. Now that you've learned a bit about conspiracy theories, we'll leave you with this. Have you ever heard of Occam's razor? Occam's razor is the idea that the simplest explanation is usually true. Think about how many people would have to be working together completely in secret to manufacture a virus to infect the world's population so that the powers that be can implant tracking microchips through a vaccine developed to cure or prevent that same virus. And they'd all keep the secret and no proof would be leaked. Thousands, tens of thousands of people? Occam's razor suggests that another, much simpler explanation is more likely. Like that COVID-19 is a real virus that jumped from animals to humans and that's easily transmitted from person to person.
So going back to some reasons of how even very educated people buy into and believe conspiracy theories, is that it brings comfort to, tough and scary situations. It provides community, especially if somebody is lonely during lockdowns, and you start reading, you go down an information rabbit hole of information, um, and then you meet other, or you already know people who are like-minded in that. It's comforting to have other people who share the same fears, the same explanations of scary things that are going on in the world. There's also kind of a satisfaction and power of knowing something others don't, that you're wiser and you pay attention to the subtlety of world events and information that gets passed along to you. And often, conspiracy theories generate out of a sense of helplessness, or a situation that could lead to helplessness. Going back to the alien example, if an alien species came down and the rumor is that they're abducting citizens to experiment on them and make or enslave the human race, um, it's empowering to know that you already know that, so you can plan ahead to prevent that. Um, and you're aware of it, and others don't know it yet. Um, and that you can formulate a plan before it does happen. Okay, so we'll look at some conspiratorial theories in some um, example social media posts. So this one is a social media post, and it says vaccines developed by Bill Gates will alter DNA with an RNA coding that will remove parts of your DNA and replace it with genetic coding. This will disable the ability of spirituality and will cause people to have to cooperate with the New World Order. So then we look at the results, and people are asking, you think this is fact or fiction? Um, I don't want to, I'm not trusting anything Bill Gates does. Um, and they have lots of different comments about Bill Gates' motives. So the group talking about this theory is pretty like-minded in their analysis of this idea that uh, the vaccine is changing your DNA. So what does this example, what conspiratorial characteristics does this exemplify? Okay, the next one is crediting um, that the Lord created a flat earth for us to prosper together as human beings, fighting against the system which is disseminating out well, which is decimating our well. Oh, it's typo. Our well-being. We must work together to bring down the belief of lies being spread. The Earth is flat. It was flat 2,000 years ago. It's flat now and will remain flat. Amen. Thank you, Lord. So, what conspiratorial characteristics does this best exemplify? Um, the fact that it's using religion, which is a core belief and principle to most people who are believers, no matter what religious group that they belong to. So it's a connection to personal feelings and beliefs. So Neo saying that his immune system is enough and he doesn't need vaccines. What characteristic does this best exemplify? Simplifying a complex problem. True, we have immune systems. They work very well. They keep us healthy, most of us healthy, from a lot of different things that we probably don't even realize. But when you introduce a new illness, we've seen how many times in history a new illness that gets introduced into a population, well, can decimate entire populations. So it's really simplifying, just having saying that you have an immune system so you don't need a vaccine. That's really an oversimplification of solving the problem. So this social media post talks about having her first Christmas without her family. He had a breakup with his wife because she didn't want to see his point of view and the truth. He's a flat earther, and she and the kids refused to believe in his beliefs of a flat earth, and they just weren't buying into it. So he's asking if others are spending Christmas alone, and he appreciates that he has a group of like-minded individuals who are trying to seek the truth. So what conspiratorial characteristic does this exemplify? Belonging to a group, because he's appreciating a group of like-minded individuals and how he had to remove people out of his life who wouldn't see his point of view. So in this part, we're going to take a look at bias. Again, not very in-depth, but there was a reason why I had us look into bias pretty in-depth the first couple of weeks, because really it's bias that is one of the main ingredients to misinformation, disinformation, fake news, whatever you want to call it. Most of misinformation or disinformation, if there's intent, is appealing to our biases, whether we realize we have them or not. So we're going to go back earlier into the semester. And in this video, we're going to talk about a few different types of biases that some are new, some we've already talked about, but we will look at a few different
Conspiracy theories can trigger our brain's need for explanations that make our world feel less unpredictable. Here are some of the ways conspiracy theories use our need for answers to take us down fictional rabbit holes. First, conspiracy theories offer a perpetrator, someone or something to focus on as the cause of the imagined conspiracy. Second, it's common to look for cause and effect relationships because we want things to make sense. This is called epistemic motivation, the desire to build a stable, accurate, and consistent way of understanding the world. Third, we have existential motivation, the need to feel safe and secure and in control. Fear and feelings of powerlessness can cause us to see threats and to quickly accept information that helps us regain a sense of control, even if that information is not true. Last, conspiracy theories thrive on our natural vulnerability to cognitive biases. Cognitive biases are common errors in the way that we take in and frame information to justify the cause and effect relationships of the conspiracy theory. There are many different cognitive biases that we're all susceptible to. One kind of cognitive bias is called proportionality bias. This is the belief that major events must have major causes. Take the assassination of President Kennedy, for example. Some people wonder how one man could have assassinated the President of the United States all on his own. They felt that Lee Harvey Oswald must have been part of a larger conspiracy. People then began to look for and manufacture larger stories to fit the magnitude of the tragedy. Another type is intentionality bias. We don't like to believe that accidents happen. That's scary and unpredictable. So rather than accepting the randomness of certain events, people sometimes seek information that helps them portray the event in question as intentional. This is especially true with major disasters and often coincides with proportionality bias. People often support these ways of thinking through confirmation bias, the natural tendency of people to readily accept claims that agree with or reinforce their existing beliefs, and to find reasons to dismiss claims and evidence that contradict or complicate their beliefs in some way. Combine all of this with motivated reasoning, and you have a perfect recipe for conspiratorial thinking.
So as we just heard, cognitive dissonance and conspiracy theories, they kind of work hand in hand because it cements and connects in people's minds that their belief, their values um, can be upheld and it makes sense to them. Um, so it helps them keep that uncomfortable I might be wrong feeling or my beliefs are wrong. Um, it it allows them to be right, or they haven't they don't need to change a value or a belief. Okay, so another little quick quiz. Someone who believes that the government is always lying and manipulating people, and who therefore refuses to believe any data other than the information released by a government agency is likely exhibiting institutional cynicism.
Institutional cynicism is the oxygen that fuels conspiratorial thinking. People who are cynical about institutions, including the government, corporations, the media, the medical establishment, typically believe that all information from these sources is somehow self-serving. Meaning, they believe that these sources are out to manipulate or deceive them and to push some secret agenda. Ironically, this cynicism about reliable sources can lead people to embrace some of the least credible and sketchiest sources of information out there. That's dangerous because it leads them away from highly credible sources of information with standards designed to promote fairness, transparency, and accuracy. Often, these sketchy sources will bolster their false information by claiming to have the truth that the mainstream media doesn't want you to hear.
So, to reiterate, institutional cynicism, it's easy for people to get sucked into conspiratorial thinking, especially when they're involving institutions like a government agency um, or a school or whatever it could be, because then it's easier to dispute them. If going back to earlier in this lesson, if institutions have been wrong in the past, then they can be wrong about this, and therefore your core beliefs are in question. You can use that cognitive dissonance to relieve that conflict that goes on in somebody's head, and it just makes them feel right. And in the end, we don't want to be afraid. We don't want to feel uncomfortable. Don't like the unknown. Nobody likes the unknown, for the most part. So a lot of these biases are almost defense mechanisms of how our brains are wired to, um, to survive, to be able to get through the day. In this video, we're going to go over, again, confirmation biases and uh, confirmation of beliefs. So when a conspiracy theory confirms a belief or confirms your value and that you are actually right, not just feel right, but you're actually right, that's powerful. That's a powerful feeling. That's hard to escape from. And um, we're going to look at how that connects a little bit more.
You've already learned about confirmation bias, only believing information that confirms what someone wants to believe. Motivated reasoning is similar to confirmation bias. In fact, confirmation bias can cause us to engage in motivated reasoning, which is when someone actively looks for reasons why they're right and rejects facts and research that don't fit their belief. Motivated reasoning helps people who believe a conspiracy theory to keep believing it and to reject the most clear-cut contradictory evidence.
So one thing that I thought that the last set of videos really iterated nicely and explained it really concisely, better than I could, is conspiracy theories are often believable is because we're almost hardwired to look for patterns in clouds, the man on the moon. I didn't know that. I've never heard of the bunny shape on the moon, but I can see it now. And that's a survival instinct that we've had. To spot dangers and fears, or hey, there's food over there. When I see this, it usually means something good, or if I see that, it usually leads to something bad. And conspiratorial thinking reinforces some of those patterns. It nips at those um, survival instincts that we don't even think about anymore, and helps us makes if we see a pattern, how it can help make complex situations make sense. Um, we see this in data and hidden meetings between. In this one, it's um, they're finding a code and correlation between what James Comey said and how it equals different things to reveal information um, that others thought to be part of a conspiracy theory. I don't really know which conspiracy theory, but this is one example of how kind of out there. And I don't really understand, to be honest, I don't really even understand the correlation that they get to. But I've seen, studying misinformation and disinformation conspiracy theories, I've seen similar posts where I don't see the correlation, but others do, and it makes sense to them, and tugs at that need to be right and make sense and find a pattern in something. This is just a fun little exercise. You can pause this video and see what kind of connections you can make. And a real true conspiracy theorist might say that I'm sending you all a message, and those like-minded to me in my conspiracy theory that I'm propagating, if you can find the code, then you'll have the special information. And I'm totally kidding when I say that, but that's how it comes along, and that's how some people think in their conspiracy theories. Now, it might seem so absurd, but I'm sure we all have had, an inkling of a feeling that, that conspiracy theory, I wouldn't, and even myself, there's some that I don't put all my eggs in a basket and take it to the bank. But there's some conspiracy theories that I hear that, it really wouldn't surprise me if that was true. But the reality is until I have evidence that supports it being true, or it's plausible in being true, I can't really go around in good conscience spreading that idea, because I have no idea if it's true. And I probably have it all wrong, even if I found some sort of connection. And so this is, examples of different codes that you could decipher from it. And finding a pattern and a coded message, and they're just random words. So let's talk about the dangers of conspiratorial thinking. And some of, it's quick to laugh at some of these theories. It's tempting to go down a hypothetical rabbit hole of conspiracy theories. And to be honest, as long as you keep your brains in check, that even if you want to research or go down information rabbit holes about conspiracy theories, to either prove or disprove them to yourself, it's important to keep yourself in check and remember of what the reality is, because there's a real danger, and it's so easy. And I've seen this with some of my own family, people I know. I'm a librarian, so I really hear all sorts of questions. These days, I've even been called some names based on conspiracy theories. Not anyone at CSU or a student or faculty, but somebody hears I'm a librarian, or they see my professional email account on LinkedIn, and I get a derogatory comment now based on conspiracy theories that have been passed along. So it's easy to get into the danger zone and I'm sure that at first many people didn't intend to say, you know what, I'm going to go find that conspiracy theory. I'm going to go see if, I'm going to go generate a conspiracy theory and see if I can prove it. Nobody thinks that. A lot of times they stumble upon an idea, and then, I use air quotes, do their own research, and it really harms their life.
So why should you watch out for conspiratorial thinking? There's a real danger in believing misinformation and ignoring credible sources of information about what's happening in the world. It's important to build critical thinking skills and to learn how to seek out solid information from credible sources, instead of just seeking out confirmation of things you already believe. If you stop trusting credible sources, like medical experts and scientists, you'll have a harder time protecting yourself from actual threats, like COVID-19, because you won't be open to expert advice. Getting caught in a bubble of belief can be risky. Positive feelings about being part of a group or community of believers can short-circuit your rational thinking. These echo chambers can make you lose sight of how far-fetched the beliefs really are because you stop taking in contradictory viewpoints. Group members can get really upset when someone questions the group's widely held beliefs and will likely try to talk you back into their thinking. Belief in certain conspiracy theories can make you vulnerable to dangerous ideas. Conspiracy theories may include beliefs that are dangerous to your physical health. For example, many arguments against vaccinations are based on false ideas and conspiratorial thinking. And in extreme cases, belief in conspiracy theories could cause you to break laws or endanger your life or the lives of others. So how can we inoculate ourselves against conspiratorial thinking? Calm, critical thinking and a commitment to looking at all facts, including ones that you don't agree with at first, is your best protection against these risks. Conspiracy theories thrive and spread as a result of our fears and anxieties, and many of the things happening today can fuel those emotions. You could stumble on conspiracy theories while genuinely searching for information. If you encounter a conspiracy theory, the compelling narrative, imagery, or claims can draw you in, manipulating your emotions and ultimately tricking you into believing it. But with a little effort, you can counter that response with evidence, facts, and verified information, and resist giving in to conspiratorial thinking. There are many conspiracy theories out there, and new ones popping up regularly. It's important to remember that if you encounter something sensational or shocking, step back. Engage in verification and fact-checking. Be critical, and don't accept ideas without checking them out for yourself.
So it's, I like how in this video there's a really clear-cut explanation and description with much better graphics than I could create on inoculating yourself from conspiratorial thinking. And one of the best elements of advice that I can personally give is to approach things with an open mind, not necessarily that the conspiracy theory could be true, but looking at it from a different angle of there are facts that I may not agree with, but I should be open to them to make a conclusion. So when you have different types of facts from different sources, regardless if you agree with them, disagree with them, think they're complete nonsense or garbage, crazy, it's important to look at them anyway. And the reason is because you can't really do a critical analysis of information unless you look at the information that goes against your confirmation bias. If you're only looking at information that supports your idea or concern, you've fallen into confirmation bias. What if there's a ton of information that will be even more helpful and prevent you from falling victim to a conspiracy theory? Conspiracy theories really do thrive on fear and anxiety. Not all the time there is it intentional, but that's how they spread. Now, sometimes people intentionally create a conspiracy theory to generate that fear and anxiety for malicious purposes. And it's important to approach these types of questions calmly, collectively, look at a broad source of facts from sources that you may think is absolutely awful. If you watch CNN, go to Fox News. If you watch Fox News, go to CNN. If you're looking at a news story, see how different sides and the spectrum of news coverage and we went over this a little bit in fact checking. That's how laterally fact checking, it gives you a broad range of how something's being talked about. And there might be really important clues to finding definitive proof or to debunk something, to put not only your mind at ease, but ease at the put others at ease that, hey, this isn't plausible. And plausibility is a really, really important part to look at to inoculate yourself from conspiracy theories. That and motivation. Why would somebody do this? Is it plausible? Is it feasible? Do they have the resources to do it? I suppose anything's possible, but going back to the flat Earth theory, I never really understood. Personal side note: I could not understand how people buy into the flat earth theory. And throughout this course, I've always made it a really important, it was really important to me to not both sides issues, but approach tough topics in ways that are fair, honest, um, but also not to inflame tensions and tune people out so that they won't hear what I have to say and consider it. And I choose my language very, very, I'm very, very aware and deliberate in the language that I do use. So, with that said, there is one conspiracy theory I have no patience for. I will not debate it. I will not like it is just I do not believe it. And that is flat earth theory. And this is because I even did research into I never could get a straight answer on the evidence that people have that the earth is flat. Just it doesn't make sense. And the earth being a sphere makes so much more sense. There's models that produce it. We can predict seasons. We can predict um, how the sun is going to move, how the moon is going to, first quarter, how the moon is going to look first quarter, new moons, full moons. We can precisely, accurately show and know the phase of the moon. Look at lunar and solar eclipses. We don't see a disk flying in the middle. We see, round, the moon gets blocked out by a sphere moving in front of the sun and casting a shadow. So with that, I researched it because I wanted to understand the logic behind why others would think that the earth is flat. And I never found an answer. I found answers, but nothing definitive that says, if you look at this, this causes that phenomenon. That could, cause, one to believe that the earth is flat. And I'd see experiments, and I'm not a science person at all, but I do know enough that the experiments that I was seeing were bogus. That wouldn't determine anything if and plus you watch a boat go past the horizon, um, you can watch it, curve down in. It just doesn't go boom. You don't just see it keep going, keep going, keep going, and then it's out of sight. There's no model. There's no consistent flat Earth model, like how there's a consistent globe model with the sun and the Earth and how it rotates and it spins and at what axis. All of that is consistent, and you can do experiments to prove that. So, why am I talking about this? Well, one of the arguments is that the Earth, the edge of the Earth, is like this ice wall, and that's where the government is. I'm not really sure why they're there in that flat Earth theory, but there's secret bases, and um, you you can take certain flights to you can't take a flight from Santiago to Johannesburg, um, and if you do book a flight, that flight will never take off. That type of logic. And so, okay, so let's say the Earth is flat. This is where plausibility and reasoning comes into play. So all of NASA is lying. So I don't know how many people work at NASA, but let's just for easy numbers say 100,000 people all over the world work at NASA. Then you have all those teachers teaching about how the Earth is round. And not just in grade school or even middle school, you have high school science, college level scientists. And part of the theory is that they're all paid off. Well, that's a lot of people to pay off. And with that many people being paid off, don't you think somebody would have talked? Don't you think somebody would have had photographic evidence of this ice wall at the end of the earth? And then, really, the most important question is why? What's the purpose? If the earth is actually flat, why not just tell us? Like, what does it benefit anybody, us all thinking it's a globe? So I know that was a little bit of a digression, but my point is that it's important to think about the plausibility and the why would a conspiracy theory, what's the point? And can you really pay off that many people, that many scientists, that many teachers, that many um, um, astrophysicists, and the astronauts and all of that? Not only is that an insane amount of money, they still can't, in any of the theories that I've looked into, they can't give a reason why they would hide that the earth is flat if it really was flat. So with that, let's talk. We're going to head to the discussion forum, so we can talk about conspiracy theories and how they affect our lives. And think about how you think about certain topics that might be considered conspiracy theories. And if you buy into some of them, or not necessarily believe wholeheartedly in it, but it wouldn't surprise you if it was true. And I've been honest, about some of the of the different conspiracy theories that I've wouldn't surprise me. The alien thing wouldn't surprise me if that was true. I have no idea. I have no evidence, but the way scientists and astrophysicists talk, and the probability of life being on other planets, I'm sure there's other life forms there. I'm not sure if they've already visited. It would not shock me if they have, and the government didn't want to tell us. But the main difference is that in the reality right now, we don't know. We know that there is no evidence to suggest that wholeheartedly, definitively, that aliens have come here or crash landed, and all of that. But it really wouldn't surprise me if that was true, based on other cover-ups that the government had. But I'm also not going to go around and start, a group and, making up evidence so other people follow my thought process. But there might be some, and some of the, on the History Channel, they have some of those alien shows. They do present some compelling evidence, but I'm still not gonna say yes, that is it, and I'm gonna start raging against the government over that. We'll also look at in the discussion forum how to give some credit to conspiracy theories, and how that's often benign, but the slippery slope, like we just mentioned, that it can be. So with that, I will see you in the discussion forum, and also I'll have another video really with this week, and that is about talking about conspiracy theories with people you care about without causing an argument. So with that, I will see you in the discussion forum, and see you there. Bye.